Today, the Joint Standing Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Affairs has tabled a report in the Senate following an inquiry into the application of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in Australia. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is the most comprehensive international instrument on the rights of Indigenous people. It was adopted by the United Nations in 2007 and sets out a universal framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity and well-being of Indigenous peoples around the world. Our committee's inquiry set out to look at how UNDRIP could apply in Australia. Specifically, it looked at the international experience of implementing UNDRIP, it looked at options to improve adherence to UNDRIP principles in Australia, and it looked at how implementation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart can support the application of UNDRIP. Earlier this year, many members of the committee had the opportunity to listen to the community and Indigenous organisations across Australia. From the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people in Perth, to Wiradjuri country in New South Wales, to the lands of Gimai Wallubara Yidi clans in Queensland and the Wurundjeri people in Victoria. We listened to them about what they wanted for the future. This report is a culmination of the lessons learnt from listening to those on the ground. It sets the foundation for an ambitious agenda to move forward into action and better the lives of First Nations people in this country, to make a real difference that First Nations Australians can feel a part of, to move all Australians forward together. This committee, led by Senator Pat Dodson, Uncle Pat, has worked hard to ensure we reflect grassroots views and learn from community stories, experience and evidence. The report tabled today makes several recommendations about how UNDRIP should apply in Australia, but I just want to highlight two here today for the sake of time. The first is a recommendation that an independent process of truth-telling and agreement-making is established, as requested by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, to support healing and assist the implementation of UNDRIP. The committee heard time and time again about the strong alignment between the Uluru Statement from the Heart and UNDRIP. Based on the evidence we heard, the request for a Makarrata Commission to oversee truth-telling and agreement-making remains consistent with UNDRIP. 2 weeks ago, I hosted a delegation of Victorian First Nations leaders in Canberra to talk about how we can shape future policy to ensure Indigenous people can achieve life outcomes commensurate with non-Indigenous people. The Victorian delegation involved people across several different sectors: legal, health, education, traditional owner corporations. Despite their varied professions, they agreed on this one thing: the continued importance of treaty and truth-telling for the future of Indigenous affairs policy in Australia, and the scope to learn from the experience in Victoria. The second recommendation I want to highlight from the UNDRIP report is about education. And this isn't just for schools and for young people. This is relevant to every single person in Australia. Education so that every person in Australia knows our rich history and the inherent rights of First Nations people, because it supports our human dignity, distinctive culture, historical continuity and connection to our lands. Education, so acknowledgements of country aren't just tokenistic ticker-box ticking exercises, but are made with a depth of understanding and pride about who we are as a nation. Education, so the celebration of our culture isn't just limited to NAIDOC weeks but takes place every single day. Going forward, our government will ensure that our response to those recommendations are determined in partnership and through continued meaningful consultations with First Nations people. To do otherwise would be entirely inconsistent with the very principles of UNDRIP. We must take the time to get this right. I'm very proud to have contributed to this work. I want to thank all the witnesses who took the time to contribute to this national discussion. You contributed a significant part. Thank you to Uncle Pat and my colleagues on the committee, not only for their efforts in relation to the report, but also for continually advocating for better outcomes and quality of life for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And while I'm on my feet, don't start me. I want to take this moment to say thank you to Uncle Pat for your contribution to this nation and for fighting for First Nations justice. your legacy will forever be felt in this place. Thank you for your courage and commitment to our people now and forever. Thanks, Dr. Pratt.
Senator Pratt.